Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. It's Friday, February 5th, 2021. We're very glad you're with us today. Our agenda today, we'll start out with success stories. I know of one landing so far. We'll then have everybody put their 30-second introduction, their information into the chat box, and I will then email that out to everybody this afternoon. We'll then hit our committee reports, workshops, job fairs, the Pit Crew Interview Success Workshop, our career tip of the week. We may even get a poem from Walt, because I know Walt is back with us today. And then we will have our main event, which will be open forum. And we actually have a little special thing we're going to talk about job scams before we get the really open forum. So that's what we'll, a little adaptation this morning. For those people who are on Facebook, not Facebook, for those people who are on Zoom, let me look right now real quick and check people's names. And look at that. Everybody's got their first and last name in there. Thank you very much. So I'll skip this slide, but you can always go and edit that if you want by hovering over the little camera, and it'll come up and allow you to rename yourself, and you can rename yourself wherever you want. And then don't forget, click that little box underneath it where it says, remember my name for future meetings. And that way you don't have to do that every time you join. For those people on Zoom, we ask that you use the chat box to enter your questions. For those people on Facebook, if you have any questions, please just enter them into the comment field, and I'll be sure to get those questions answered. I am monitoring the Facebook feed also this morning. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and on the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, and if you happen to post a comment in the chat box or have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your comments, name, and picture to appear. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. This group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over when the guy who was leading it landed a job and said, who wants to take it over? I think I scratched my face. He said, okay, Jeff, you're it. So I've been doing that since 2007. In 2008, I started a website called Career DFW to help people in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in their job search. After a visit to the White House in 2012, I decided to launch CareerUSA.org to help people outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I've written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It's available on Amazon for $15. And for those who live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, if you want to drive by my house, throw $10 at the window. I'll throw a book in your window as long as you drive really slowly. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team, the Pit Crew. Well, we like to start the meeting off with good news. I know of one landing so far. So Roxanne, you want to tell us your good news?
Yes, I mean, you can read, but it was weird because I had been disappointed the previous week. I came in second, and it's very disappointing. And then out of the blue, I received a phone call from the Fang, Bob Walker at the Fang, and he said that he referred me to someone. And I got an email on Wednesday of last week, and then Thursday I had an interview. And right after our call on Friday, she offered me the position. So it's strange how weird things happen, but I'm just very happy that I finally landed after 60 months, because I've been looking for a while. But I appreciate all the assistance I've had. I've networked unbelievably. I've went on every phone call. I've did informational interviews. I've been on every one of the Career DFW things that happen on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I did the Who You Know on Monday. So I've done the rounds, so I could probably teach a class on this stuff by now. But I appreciate everything and all the insight. But I'm going to still do the tip of the week for the next 2 weeks. I start February 15th, right after Valentine's Day, and I'm very happy.
Roxanne, well, thank you very much. I mean, it's just amazing. So, not one application. Any idea how many applications or how many jobs you've applied to over the last 16 months?
Oh, I would say millions. It seemed as though it was millions, but I'd say a good, 100, 150. Some of them I did the spaghetti where you just throw them out there and see if it'll stick. Others I've had good things where I've actually had the first interview and then I didn't move on. And you're always like, it seems like an emotional roller coaster.
All right. Well, congratulations. So it's just amazing that in 4 days you landed a job, just from a referral from a friend. So that's just great. So Roxanne, thank you very much. And thank you for reading the tip every week the last couple months and for the next couple weeks. And so somebody else out there will be looking for a Roxanne replacement. So if you'd like to read the tip, please reach out to me and let me know, and we'll get you set up to do that. So do we have any other success stories? Roxanne was the only person. If you can unmute your mic and let me know if you landed or you've got anybody going once, going twice. Okay, well, just one more landing, and I didn't look to see how many landings that makes us, but I'll put that in the email that goes out this afternoon to tell us what our count is right now. Okay, so what I need everybody to do now, if you will, in the chat box or in the comment field on Facebook, please enter your name, your comma, phone number, comma, email address, comma, position you're looking for, comma, a couple target companies, and then hit the return key. If you hit the return key too soon, then each one of those lines is broken up. So if you will put all that information in there, I will then use that information to update the roster this afternoon and make sure that everybody's accounted for and get your information and include you and add you to our mailing list if you're not already part of our mailing list. So if everybody will do that, that will be great. For those people who are on Facebook, I will delete your personal information right after this seminar is over. I'll go on Facebook, copy your information off, and then delete the post that has your personal information on it. So let's go here, 30 seconds on the clock. All right, so hope everybody's had an opportunity to get their information in. If you don't, keep typing away. You can just keep putting it in the chat box in the comment field. That'll be great. Okay, so time to hear about job fairs, career fairs, training workshops. I actually know there's actually 2 job fairs coming up next week. So Eldon, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. As Jeff said, I'm Eldon Zarinsky, and I focus on providing you information about career and job fairs and special workshops or events. The information I'm about to present comes from the calendar tab of the website careerdfw.org. I go through these fairly quickly, so if you hear something that catches your ear, I urge you to go to the calendar, click on that item, and find out more about it. There's usually links to register or at least find out more about the event. All right, this week's career and job fairs, as Jeff said, there are 2 of them. The American Legion and Texas Veterans Workforce Commission Virtual Career Fair will be held Tuesday, February 9th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And there's a registration link on the calendar for that one. There's another virtual career fair put on by Workforce of North Central Texas, and that's Thursday, February 11th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. This week's special workshops or events. Online is, again, LinkedIn Tuesdays at 1 p.m. This is a rotating workshop between Locke Alderson, Terry Sullivan, Ruth Lipsky, and Kurt Vandemater. And they talk about their various areas of specialization in a rotational order. There's a Zoom link and a career and a Facebook page link for that one as well. There'll be a meeting to find out about Career DFW and careerusa.org and how to use them at St. Jude Career Alliance in Dallas. This will be a virtual meeting. It'll be put on by our host, Jeff Morris, who's the founder of Career DFW and careerusa.org. And I urge you to attend that if you want to learn more about these websites. Online interviewing Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Join Mark McDonald and Walt Glass in their interview success workshop and the pit crew leaders. for their 13-part workshop on interviewing. This week's session, session 6, is interview openings, closings, and follow-ups. And that will be held Wednesday, February 10th from 1 p.m. to 2:30. Online Resume Thursdays with Carol Brickell, Certified Professional Career Coach, will be held Thursday, February 11th from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. And that's it for this week.
Eldon, thank you very, very much. All right, let's see here. Okay, for those people, if you're trying to find other webinars or other things that you can attend in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, or you can attend anywhere because everything is going virtual. Just click on here where it says webinar, teleseminars, and radio TV shows. This is one of the layers of the calendar. You saw everything on the calendar earlier. By clicking here, you'll come up with just the calendar here, and this will only show you what's going on virtually. And there are links and everything you need to be able to join any one of these groups listed right there. If you know somebody who just lost their job, I guess another 700,000 people filed for unemployment for the first time this past week. If you know somebody who is in those, who's just lost their job, please refer them to the Career DFW and careerusa.org. Let them know about our websites. There's a great little one-page article that I've put together here with some great tips. I just got laid off. What do I do? Starting out with filing unemployment, where to do that at. And then there's some really great handouts here from Gail Bridgman, 68-page document that was written what to do the first 90 days of your job search. A lot of really great information here for those people who've been laid off. If you're trying to come up with what should I do first, get yourself in order. So here's a great little article that you can use for that. All right, it's time to hear from the practice interview team. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Jeff, and good morning to everybody else. So the pit crew's been very busy the last couple of weeks, but there's now a pause. It's kind of the first time in a couple of weeks where I haven't, already had some booked up for next week. So I have one for next week, which means 3 more are available, maybe even 4. So take the opportunity to practice. So what is the practice interview all about? Well, we're about, helping you actually perform an interview. So you send in a job description and a resume, and I have a group of volunteers who have all been hiring managers, and we study up in advance on your material that you've provided, the job you've selected, and then we do a mock interview. And a lot of the candidates are very surprised at how well prepared the interviewers are, because we'll do research on the company. Usually the volunteers, the interviewers, volunteer to be on your panel. So they volunteer because they have something in common, maybe some insight into what you're working with. They may have worked in the same field or at similar companies. So we take special effort to make sure we give you a realistic interview experience. And so you can practice your openings and closings and answering questions using the STAR Story format and attempting to build rapport and all those kinds of things that are important in an interview. That's what we're about. And so you may want to practice that more than once, and that's okay. Come and practice as many times as you like. My slogan here is practice early and practice often, which means you don't have to have a job on the line. You don't have to have an interview already scheduled before you reach out to me. We had one this week who just wanted to come and practice to improve her skills. And so she did. And every time you practice, you're going to get better. You're going to learn something new. You're going to become more comfortable working the camera. And speaking of that, you can practice today, right now. Just get yourself a little timer, maybe your phone, and look directly at the camera and see if you can do that for 2 minutes without being distracted by what's going on in the background. Because when you're interviewing and you want to look somebody in the eye, you look them right in the camera. And it's a tricky thing to do because you want to look at what's going on around the screen. So you can practice today doing that, and then you'll make a much better impression in any virtual interview that you have. So I think I forgot to mention that these practice interviews are totally free. So it's all done by volunteer work. I do need to know, when you send in your job description and your resume, I need to know when you're available for the next like +2 and +3 days. It takes a little bit of time to organize, your schedule against the schedule of the interviewer. So +2 or +3 days. If you send that to me at the beginning, that'll help speed things up. And you send all that information to the email address at the bottom of this card, dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. And I've also included that in the chat window. So when you get the chat afterwards, you can get the email address off of there. So if you send something in to me today, I'd be trying to schedule it for Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. So take advantage of that, please. And also link in with me. There's my LinkedIn profile. You can find that by searching my name, include that middle initial, or you can search for Pit Crew, and I think I'll show up very close to the top as well. And just send me a brief note that says we met on the North Dallas Career Focus Group, and I'll add you to my network, and then you'll be better prepared when an opportunity comes up. You may have a contact inside a company through my network. And the interesting thing about LinkedIn, which I learned a few months ago, and it makes so much sense, but I didn't realize it. On Facebook, when you're on Facebook, you can search the entire Facebook universe. I mean, you can find people all over the world. But on LinkedIn, when you go searching for somebody, you only search your connections and the connections of people you're connected to. So it's important to have a large network because that gives you a larger search database. So interesting way that LinkedIn works there. And of course, that's the name, LinkedIn. So you can only search the environment, I guess, or the scope of your searches are based on how big your network is. And it's not just your network, but it's the network of people you're connected to. All right, do I have anything? Did I leave anything out, Jeff?
Yeah, do you want to coach on a topic? Would you like to coach people?
I think I'll talk about that. I usually talk about it on Wednesday, but one of the 4 top questions you're going to need to have a good answer to is, why did you leave your last job? And for a lot of people, it's pretty straightforward. COVID came. I was in the hospitality industry, and the company had to cut back. So me and a bunch of other of my coworkers, had to leave the company. That's pretty straightforward. If it's more complicated than that, there might have been a layoff of one, just you. And sometimes that'll make interviewers curious, where you're really laid off or were you asked to leave. So if you have something complicated like that, then let's have a conversation and we'll storyboard how to tell that story. And then also any follow-up questions that may be generated by your situation. So it's a very situational topic and confidential as well. So just reach out to me via email at the same dallaspitcrew@gmail.com address, and we'll set up a time to have a conversation, and we can do it on Zoom as well. So you can record it. You get a recording of that, and you can listen to it afterwards as well. So please take advantage of that.
And you want to talk about this one next Wednesday?
Yeah, Wednesday. Okay, so the webinar, next week's topic on Wednesday at 1 o'clock is openings and closings and follow-up. So we spent 5 sessions talking about how to prepare for interviews. And this week's session, 2 days ago, was about analyzing the job description. Okay, so now we're going to start a session of 5 sessions, or start a period of 5 sessions where we talk about effective interviewing. And of course, that starts with openings, and openings are connected to closings, and closings are connected to the follow-up. So that's what we'll be talking about this coming Wednesday.
Great, thank you very, very much. Walt, good morning. Welcome back to the group.
Well, thank you much, and good morning, everybody. Congratulations, Roxanne. I have moved you from interview success workshop participant to graduate. It's good to see you, and I'm really glad to hear the news. So what do? I like to help people, build their confidence through practice and understanding the skills to differentiate yourself in an interview. And so I created the interview success workshop. It's free. You have to be registered to attend. I'm going to put some information in the chat window. I think that worked. So you can see how to register by sending me an email at walt_glass@yahoo.com. The interview is very informal. I call it a learning interview because we start with the basics and the fundamentals. Vince Lombardi, coach of the Green Bay Packers at one time, held up a football and said, "This is a football," which is the beginning, the fundamentals of playing football, right? So what are the fundamentals in interviewing? Well, they're in differentiation of how to address structure, strategies, options, ideas, approaches for basic fundamental questions out of 11 basic categories. So we have a question out of each category. You get a video of your interview. I'll give you a handout that goes over a lot of the differentiation and the main things we talk about, and give you some other tips and ideas on being different in your job search. So all you have to do is send me a note to that email address. Say I'd like to register to attend. I'll usually hold them on Tuesdays from about 10 to 12. Be love to have you come down and join us. So in this interview, you can start over. You can actually stop and think of an answer, which is a pretty good idea in a real interview. We have some fun. And so I call it learning without squirming. No need to sit in the hot seat to learn how to improve your interviewing skills. A little bit of poetic license today. The interview you can practice. You get better with each practice. Don't wait to start your practice. You'll get that job at lastest.
Thank you very, very much, Walt. All right, it's time to hear from Roxanne. Good morning. Congratulations again on your new job. Let's hear about the career tip of the week.
All right, thanks. The career tip of the week is 7 ways to combat Zoom fatigue. After a brief holiday respite, the video calls are back in earnest, yet burning out on them can set back your career, by Eileen Gochman and Mark Royal. It is by all accounts a real problem. Zoom or any other video calls running back to back all business day, causing everything from eye strain to bad backs to irritability. Indeed, despite nearly a year of getting used to it, many employees at all levels say that they're still suffering from this rather awkward form of communicating. But the harm is not only to people's mental and physical side. Smart executives are realizing careers now hang in the balance over not only how to use these platforms well, but how to reduce the burnout they can cause. They could see that those who don't Zoom very well are losing the attention of their leaders or the people they are trying to lead. To be sure, the problem may subside as more offices reopen and the vaccine emerges for widespread use. But the new government lockdowns emerging and social distancing occurring even in open space offices, video conferences and Zoom fatigue aren't going away soon. Some steps that may help. Set an agenda, then follow it. Meetings, video or otherwise, become tiresome when they go long or don't accomplish anything. The odds of that happening increase when no one knows exactly what the meeting needs to accomplish. Experts suggest setting and sharing an agenda with all meeting participants before the call. Then, during the meeting, don't feel badly about pulling back anyone who rambles or gets too far off track. Of course, sometimes meetings have to be long due to what needs to be covered. That's okay. Try to keep each section of the meeting to less than 30 minutes. No video call, no matter how important the presentation is, should go for longer than 2 hours. Hide your video from yourself. When you're speaking with someone face to face, you only see their face, not yours. But on a video call, you see yourself too. It's not only you who may feel awkward or distracted either. Seeing yourself on camera, psychologists say, can make you stressed out about your own appearance, contributing to your feeling tired after video calls. Zoom has a feature aptly named Hide Myself that allows other participants to see your video without your having to see it. When your video first comes on screen, right-click it. A menu will pop up where you can select Hide Myself. Don't let others see you either. Some psychologists theorize that the way video call participants look at one another can actually contribute to fatigue. In real life, making eye contact with someone improves the chances each person will respond faster and like one another. On video calls, however, people only appear to make real eye contact. In reality, they are looking only at their own computer's camera. In effect, people are putting in the effort of making eye contact without actually getting the benefit of making eye contact. Turning off your own camera can eliminate that psychological disconnect. At the same time, it takes a lot of effort to look interested and engaged during video calls. After several hours of Zooming, people can look stressed and haggard. Leaders are beginning to understand that people can't keep their Zoom face up all day. Unless it's a one-on-one or a small group meeting, video is likely not necessary. Some just turn the camera off. Touch up your appearance. Can't turn the camera off? Even if you're physically tired, you can still improve how you look on camera. Zoom has a touch-up function that works much like an Instagram filter, automatically adjusting light, color, and other settings to enhance your facial features. To enable this, go to Settings, then select Video and toggle on Touch Up My Appearance. Work on your voice. Much like people get tired of seeing themselves, they also get frustrated hearing themselves. That's why some experts suggest changing your voice, though they don't mean silly accents or cartoon voices. Try speak only when you breathe out. Make sure you speak when the air comes out to force your voice to eject more powerfully, increasing your vocal power in the process. Schedule blocks of quiet time. Meeting fatigue has existed long before video conferencing. Before the pandemic, there were 11 million meetings in the United States each day, according to various research. The simple way to alleviate meeting overload, video or otherwise, is to block off time during a day when no one can schedule a meeting with you. Analysts say that limiting remote meetings can be critical to avoiding worker burnout. There will be days, of course, where you have to speak to multiple people. Rather than making them all video calls, consider sharing documents and talking about them over the phone. You might work more efficiently and get a break from constantly being on camera. Get up between meetings. Don't just do other work once the meeting is over. Get up, stretch, walk around. Admit to yourself that we're not built to keep our faces centered on a small window for hours on end. Recharging is important, even if it means turning off the camera or showing up a few minutes late for your 7th call of the day. That's the career tip of the week, and have a great weekend and good luck, everyone.
Roxanne, thank you. And, I know this was written towards people who are employed, but I thought a lot of these tips are still good, as a job seeker, just to think about making sure you get up, schedule some time, your appearance. You do want people to see you, so you don't want to turn your camera off. But it is a nice feature to be able to hide your camera from your screen so you don't see you. So that's why I included. So not necessarily all tips are written to job seekers, but I thought there were a lot of really good tips here to include. This tip, if you want to read the whole thing or see it again, it's on the Career DFW and Career USA websites under Tip of the Week. It'll be there till Saturday at 1 o'clock, and then the new tip for next week will pop up. All right, let's see here. Okay, in just a few minutes, we'll do our main event. We're going to do open forum. So if you have questions about your job search, I hope you've got them all written down, ready to go, because we're going to need some. Before we do those, we're going to talk about job scams. So interesting article, and so we're going to talk about that for a few minutes, and then we'll go to open forum for the rest of the time. Coming up next Friday, our speaker is going to talk about background checks. Most companies that hire you are going to try to run a background check in addition to other testing. And this gentleman runs a legitimate background check company in Fort Worth. He speaks all over the state of Texas about background checks and about human HR issues. So he'll be with us next Friday. And then in 2 weeks, transitions, making sense of life's changes. This is, we've all been locked up for a year or for 9 months and just making sense of life changes. So that'll be our speaker coming up in 2 weeks. Just a quick reminder, Career DFW and the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group are 2 separate organizations. Career DFW is a 501c3 nonprofit that I started back in 2008. The North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group has been around since the late 1990s. A bunch of great people who used to be able to get together in person, and a bunch of them would go out to lunch afterwards, and I really miss that. Hopefully by this fall, we'll be able to do that again. But we're 2 separate organizations. The only thing in common thread between the 2 is that I happen to lead both. So that's why I sort of mix this kind of stuff up right now. If you'd like to overthrow me and take over the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group, you're welcome to do so. Just let me know, but you're not going to get Career DFW out of my hands. All right, it's time for our main event today, open forum. So the first thing we're going to do, let's see here. Let me get Tony. Oop. You moved on me, Tony. Oh, here we go.
I'm here.
All right. Well, hold on. I need to make you a co-host. So do you want to share your PowerPoint and then,
Why don't you drive, Jeff, and that way you can click on the NBC5 video.
okay, all right, hold on, folks. Let me get a couple things up and running here. Okay. Tony, go, it's all yours.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jeff. Unfortunately, there seems to be a lot of scams going on right now, and I heard last night that it's particularly pervasive in the Chicago area. And I recently had a few exposures to these types of scams. So Jeff and I thought it might be a good idea just to kind of quickly go through what's out there and what to be aware of. So you can see on this page here, NBC recently had a video of a job seeker who was almost scammed out of $4,800. So Jeff, could you click on that and let everyone see that brief 2.5-minute video?
Told you job scams are on the rise during the pandemic when many work searches are done from home. But an NBC5 viewer contacted our response team with a scam that set itself apart. Deanna Zoga has the warning.
The introduction came in a text message. Is this Ginger Coleman? The person on the line says she's a job recruiter and found Coleman's resume on workintexas.com, the state's unemployment site.
They knew my name. They had my telephone number, obviously, because it was a text message.
Coleman was skeptical when all the communication happened over text and online chats. But at the time, Coleman needed a job after layoffs during the pandemic, and she did use Work in Texas as a resource.
I thought, well, okay, you know, it's everybody's moving in a different direction. Technology's really gaining ground. So maybe this is, you know, their platform. Maybe this is how they initially reach out to people.
Coleman received a check in the mail for work from home equipment. Cash it, said the instructions, then spend the money with our list of vendors.
In my heart of hearts, I knew it wasn't right, but I was still hoping that I was wrong.
Coleman drove to the bank to confirm her suspicion.
It's a very good replica of our bank and our checks, but it is not a good check, and we would not honor it.
Had Coleman cashed it, then bought equipment from the list of vendors, she would have later learned the check bounced, and Coleman would have been on the hook for the money sent to strangers. We asked the Texas Workforce Commission about how the scammer knew Coleman's name and phone number. The TWC says we are not aware of any compromises to the workintexas.com system. If TWC believes that a person's information has been compromised, TWC will reach out to the individual.
I know not to ever click on links or anything like that unless it's somebody that I truly trust. And even then, I'm going to call them before I click on it.
Coleman says she's generally careful and wants others to look out for strangers hiding behind a recognized name.
If they can be found, I want them to be found. And if not, I'd want the public to be very aware of what's going on.
Deanna Zoga, NBC5 responds.
Coleman never lost any money in the scheme, just precious time. She tells us she's since changed careers and has a new job. The Texas Workforce Commission says if someone offers you a vague job without an interview or asks you to pay a fee or take part in an unusual banking transaction, it is likely a scam.
Thanks, Jeff. So in the past couple of months, I've experienced a couple similar, very suspicious job interview requests. So I wanted to give you a preview of what I saw so that you can avoid that. This first one was with I got a text from a Lisa Jeffrey at 10 Cent Holdings. You can't really see those screen prints of the text, but I want to point out it started the same way as with the woman in the video you just saw. It says, "Hello, is this my name, Tony Bieniosek?" And then it goes on from there. And what they do is they say, "Oh, we want to swing you over to the HR manager at the company." In this case, it was with 10 Cent Holdings, which I believe is the second largest Chinese firm on the Shanghai Stock Exchange, which does not have a USA presence. And so I thought, okay, let's figure that out. But what's odd was they wanted me to communicate with this gentleman, a Mr. Douglas Ross, via the WhatsApp function rather than via a call or via Zoom call. So very odd. And then if you go to the next page there, Jeff. So then we had this long dialogue with this supposed HR manager, and it basically included a standard HR interview and then a long orientation about their company. And then they gave me a quiz or a test about what they reviewed with me in the orientation. And they said, okay, you passed the test. And then things got very squirrely. For example, they said, "Oh, where do you bank?" And "Oh, you're a veteran. Do you have an account with a military credit union?" And then in the meantime, I was getting more and more suspicious. So I looked for those names on LinkedIn, and nothing was there. And when I asked them about that, they kind of brushed it off. "Oh, that's not important." So at that point, I just walked away. But again, this is a very squirrely experience. I ended up wasting probably a couple hours with these people. That was the bad part. Jeff, if you go to the next page, then you'll see I had a similar interaction just on Wednesday. I got a text from a so-called Gene Barnes from Ashfield Healthcare. And note again, it starts exactly the same way. "Hello, is this my name, Tony Bianyosek?" And I checked them out while I was texting with this person. And Ashfield Healthcare is a valid company in Ohio, but there's no Gene Barnes associated with that company in LinkedIn. And when I Googled Gene Barnes, the first name that comes up is a death notice. When I asked this person, "Can you just call me? I'd rather talk than communicate via text." There was no response, just she wanted to start the whole process via texting all over again. So again, just walk away when you run into this situation. And thank you, Jeff. Now, this is a slightly different scam, I think. In late January, I got repeated texts inviting me to a Zoom presentation from Nation Headhunters. And no matter what I replied to that, I just got the same text over again. "Oh, please join us for a Zoom call." Now, when I Googled Nation Headhunters, there's no example of them. They don't exist. So again, when you run into that, just be skeptical and kind of walk away. And then if you go to the last page, Jeff, so just a summary, if you get an initial text that simply says, "Hello, is this Jeff Morris or your name?" be careful. If they don't want to speak with you over the phone, only via text or the WhatsApp, red flag. If they quickly want your bank account information, or they want to send you a check for buying stuff from their suppliers, red flag. And if you're quickly offered a job or the interview process seems too easy or too quick, it probably is something's wrong. Again, and if you sense something is wrong, it's too good to be true, then it is too good to be true. So those are my thoughts. Just be careful out there, avoid these scams, and don't waste time.
Tony,
Thanks.
Yeah, Tony, thank you very much. First, tell us, and I know you're in the Chicago area, so tell us a little about you, and for those of us who don't know you.
Oh no, sorry. Yeah, I'm here in Dallas. I just heard about this was a problem up in Chicago. But yeah, I was a consultant in the airline business, and COVID-19's ended that. So I do consulting on the supply side chain. I've done some contract and ad hoc work since then, but that's really my point of reference.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. So for everybody else, comments, suggestions, have you had this happen to you in the last several months? Please just unmute your mic and talk away. If you want to raise your hand, you can do that.
Good morning. It's
Good
Nina.
morning, Nancy.
I have not received anything in the form of a text, but I've been getting a lot of emails from companies who are sending me jobs that I'm great for. And I go and I look at the names, and they're not with people, any organization that I've signed up with or set up alerts with. So I've been very cautious and very suspicious about it, but I've been getting them in the form of emails.
Very good. I mean, that's probably happening. Also, remember, for when you do get something in email, and if there is a link provided, be very careful when you click on that link. You probably want to, I know on a PC, I don't know about a Mac, but if you hover over the link and look in the lower left-hand corner, it will show you where it's sending you. And if you don't like where it's sending you at, don't go. Okay. I mean, I never open a link on my cell phone. I never open a link, that I get up via text message. It's always going to be, if I do it anything, I'll copy it, forward it to my email account, and then be able to hover over. Because sometimes what you see on your email isn't necessarily going to be where the link truly is sending you to. So, you don't want to load a virus or something on your computer. Thank you, Nancy. Or Nina, sorry about
Nina.
that. Anybody else? Anybody else run across this?
Hello, my name is Brenda. Toombs. Yes, my sister did. She was actually looking to do a car wrap and make some money off that, just, putting a wrap on her car and driving it around. And she actually got a check in the mail. I forget how much, I think a couple $1,000s. And they took $3,000 and they told her to take out 500 for herself, take a picture of her bank deposit slip and send it to them. And so they text her. And so she was asking questions. She said, well, I have more questions. Can I? Oh, actually, they had sent it to her like through UPS. So they, it was like a next day service. So it looked like it was all legitimate. Sent it to the house. And so they said that they would give her more information once she sent in the, that she had deposited the check. And they said, take 500 for yourself. And then the rest, somebody, you go buy the actual wrap, and then somebody will be out to put it on your car. And we had actually done a wrap before by a network thing. So it was like, that's kind of strange. So she began to send questions and she wanted to talk to them. And first they was responding to her, then they just stopped responding. And so she just, said, okay, this is a scam.
Thank you. Thank you. Great information. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else have something they want to share?
From what I've seen, I get emails from job sites. The jobs are appropriate. The jobs I think are real, but then you click on it and you have to register and I don't know, maybe pay money to get the information. So no, I do not respond to certain companies at all.
Right. You just have to be careful out there. Anybody else have any comments about this? Yes, Roxanne.
Yeah, I had one where I got the email and then they wanted to interview me on Google Hangouts. And I was thinking, well, that's kind of unprofessional. And I never responded, but it was weird because, you're looking for an opportunity and they know people are been out there a while if they look at your LinkedIn or whatever. And yeah, they wanted to interview me on Google Hangouts.
I don't, I'll throw this comment out, and this is my personal opinion. I think if I had somebody wanted to interview me on Google Hangouts, I'd be okay with that. I think if it was, you don't know where people are working from home at this point, and if, somebody's out and they're ready. I mean, you need to quantify that it's truly a real position, that it's a real company, that everything else adds up.
Yeah, I did look up the company and it was in India.
Okay.
So I was a little too remote for me.
Right. Okay. Anyone else? Comments from anybody? Well, Tony, thank you. Thank you for putting this little PowerPoint together. I will include the PowerPoint slides this afternoon when I send out the email to everybody, so that if you want to go back and watch that video again from NBC5, or just to have that information or look at the screenshots a little bit better, you'll be able to do that when I send that out. So what else would you like to talk about? What kind of questions do you have about your job search? Just, you can unmute your mic, or if you like to throw the topic in the chat box, we can do that, whatever works for you.
I have something I just threw in the chat box. 2 different recruiters, 2 different jobs, real jobs out of state, wanted me to commit to taking the contract position before they even submit me, even though I have other things going on.
Has that happened to other people? Anyone? Suggestions?
I have a question. Is this like a contracting company that you would work for the contracting company and then they would farm you out for particular assignments?
Well, they're going to be at a position. In the one case that I just talked to in New Jersey, that one just says it's an open long-term contract. the other case in Nebraska, I think the recruiter's trying to pressure me because it's an immediate need, and they submitted somebody, and then that person either took the contract but didn't take the long-term offer or something. So they have a need or a pressure, but yet I'm not sure that it's actually advertised as direct to perm, which would be the only reason to really do it. In the meantime, I have 2 other things I've been submitted to that are much more normal. That, like, including a local job. Obviously, I want time to let that work out.
So let me understand, what are they asking you to sign?
They haven't asked me to sign anything. What they have said, what they have asked is if we submit you and the client interviews you and the client makes an offer, we want you to promise that you will say yes on the offer. I have the wage, I have the location, I have a job description. I haven't had the interview yet, right?
That sounds pretty strange in the fact that they don't want to mess with people who will not agree to the offer. So they're just weeding you out.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's not normal for this kind of recruiting.
Right,
This is
right.
This is for analytical chemists at pharmaceutical. That's why they're looking for people out of state. It's hard to find what I got.
So what does your gut tell you to do?
Well, in the New Jersey case where it's open-ended contract, I'm not going to even submit. In the Nebraska case where they're trying to fill the immediate need, I think she's already submitted me, but I haven't had the interview yet. Obviously, I would ask during the interview, is your plan to bring this person on full time after the period's up? And if the answer is no, then I'm not taking.
What is the penalty if you said, yeah, I'll say yes, but then you don't say yes?
There's none directly to me. It's only to the recruiting firm. It rebounds on them.
You haven't signed anything with the recruiting firm to agree to that particular stipulation.
I have not to that one. I have simply done the normal confirm that, you know, so that no other recruiting firm is going to submit me for the same job. Just the normal.
Yeah, Christina, this is Tom Atkins. This is America. You can always say no. Indentured servitude went out in the 1700s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, realistically, they may think that they can force you to work at a job, but nobody can make you work at a job. You can always.
Well, I mean, you know, you advertise it as immediate need. That's one thing. But I got 2 other things in the work. I want to let them work out. Okay. Thank you. That's the advice I was looking for.
Good. All right, in the chat box, Jason said, how can we report these scams, or how can those scams be reported to law enforcement? Do you report it to your local law enforcement? I mean, I'm sure it would just be whatever documentation you have. Do you report it to the FBI? Do you report it to your state attorney general? Anybody know where you should file these things? I guess you can call the local news media, get a story, you'll be on TV, get your 15 minutes of fame.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Dredge.
Could just kind of give me the short skinny on contract work. I've never done contract work, and I'm getting emails from recruiters about W-2, like remote jobs, but they're contract for 1 year. So is it you sign the contract and promise you'll work for them for a year? Is that how that works? Or your contract just goes for a year and then you're done?
Who out there has done contract work and can help Drake out with an answer?
I can talk to that. This is Bill. So typically with the contract work, they're trying to get you to guarantee, just like they were trying to get her to guarantee that she will stay or sign up, but they're trying to get you to guarantee that you'll be there for a year, but there's nothing in law and usually nothing in writing that forces you to stay that long or longer. Typically with contract work, they're assuming that the job will last a year, but you're still being checked out to determine if you're a good fit. They may make you leave earlier or they may extend the contract. So it's kind of up to you. And if you find a full-time job in between, too bad for them.
Okay.
To tag on to that, what's the difference between W-2 and corp to corp, or C2C as they put it? Can somebody explain how those are different?
Well, there's either you're a W-2 employee or you're a 1099 employee. A 1099 employee means that they're paying you a wage and it's up to you to file with the quarterly taxes with the federal government, file Social Security and Medicare taxes. If you're a W-2 employee, that means they're handling that. So whenever you can, you always want to be a W-2 employee. A lot of times, if it's a contract job, you're actually working for a firm. The firm, they get paid $30 an hour and they pay you $25 an hour. And they're handling all the taxes and they're handling that part of it for you. I don't know if somebody else has got more information, please kick in. I don't know, the corp to corp, I'm not really sure about. I'm presuming corp to corp would be a 1099 employee.
One thing to be aware of, well, it's a little bit field dependent. My last husband did a lot of contract engineering. And so basically some firm lands a government contract and need to bring in people for the next 6 months, 10 months, whatever. And they'll bring them in and usually you get a per diem. It's not part of your wage, so it doesn't get taxed like wage, and it's to reimburse you for the fact you're setting up temporary housing. So if somebody's asking you to relocate for a contract position, not a term, you should be getting a per diem. Again, it's not subject to withholding tax and such like that. And you can only do that after 12 months, the IRS figures you've moved. So in his engineering field, that was common. As a chemist, I've not seen that for contract. And of course, sometimes the staffing firm can offer you something resembling benefits. Other times there's nothing. So that's the other big difference.
And one of the other things that I've noted is sometimes they offer you the corp to corp because there's a bigger payout, but it's costing you more because you're paying more in your own taxes and your Social Security, and you don't get unemployment. So you got to be careful when contract companies are trying to tell you that you get a 1099 because you could get hit with a big tax bill at the end of the year. You're better off with a W-2 as a contractor.
You want them to take out the taxes along the way. I mean, I've always heard that if you're a 1099 employee, you probably should be making 40 to 50% more on your base wage than you would as a full-time employee, because you have to pay your side of the taxes, their side of the taxes that would normally be deducted, and vacation and benefits. I mean,
Social
health insurance
Security.
and everything else, Social Security and taxes, right? So if you're not getting probably, I mean, I don't know, Bill, do you have a number? I've just heard 40 to 50%.
I've heard at least that your benefits and such are usually about 33 to 40%.
Right.
That would be expensive. Let me mention something about corp to corp, because you can be a sole proprietor and you'll get a 1099. It used to be called a 1099 miscellaneous, MISC. Now I think it's called non-employee compensation, NEC. So 1099-NEC. And so you get that at the end of the year, and that's what you use to fill out your taxes with. And then you, as just mentioned, you have to pay your federal taxes and your Medicare taxes out of that compensation. Now, some companies will want you to set up a corporation. So this is the corp to corp, and they want you to set up a corporation for probably the main reason is the rules about when a contractor becomes an employee are sometimes a little tricky. Okay, but if you have a corporation, conceptually your corporation is a consulting corporation, and you could be working for multiple clients at the same time. So it's a little bit different situation when they're hiring a corporation to consult with them. And it's much more clear that you're not an employee. You're an employee of the corporation, but you're not an employee of the company that's hiring the consultant. So that's why they want to go corp to corp. And sometimes they'll require, and you'll have to set up an LLC or a C Corp in order to work for them.
If you're working contract for a contract as an employer of the contract, or the employee of record, so then they do withholding and whatever else needs to be done. So that's the other, yeah, that's definitely different than C to C.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that a lot of the companies won't contract longer than a year, because if you work for a company longer than a year, you might be considered an employee, even if the job's going to last long.
Yeah, yeah. And some companies, I know Verizon, for instance, does a lot of contracting work, and and a lot of the contractors are people they've laid off in the past, and so it's just amazing to me that's the way they do it, being such a large company. But that's a common thing for them.
Allows them to keep their legal head count down, but yet they hire all these contractors and stuff. Yeah.
You know, they can hire people who are experienced with doing what they need done, but they, cut them loose from being a full-time employee.
Right. All right. Another question. Alan asked, fresh in the job search process, if I was making, let's say, $70,000 at my previous employer, should I aim for roles at the same or above rate of pay, or should I apply mainly for roles that pay more? From the perspective of earning potential, if I go backwards, it's really not a positive feeling. What are suggestions for people, from people? Did I butcher that up and you can't understand what I just said?
I think you have to have a range you're comfortable with. And yes, at this point in time, some of us may be going backwards in salary. And I've applied for positions with a wide range of at least posted or referred to salary, but again, only for ones within my own personal range. So, and part of it too is that you might focus on money or you might focus on title, because there's some thought around if you focus on title and that gets you into potentially a higher range that you can move up later on.
Thank you, Laura. Other comments?
I usually read the job description first and see, because I have a PhD, but I get submitted a lot for things that only need a bachelor's plus experience. And so obviously it's a different pay grade. So I usually end up adding the recruiter what the pay grade would be. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
Hey, Jeff.
Yes.
Listen, I'm at a friend's house, so I actually have a computer with a microphone. Listen, I just want to share a couple thoughts. And for those of you online who don't know me, I have over 25 years of experience in both operations and HR. So I want to hop back just for a moment to the 1099 versus W-2. Bear in mind, one of the main reasons employers use 1099, obviously, is to save on their paying the taxes. So if you're 1099, in essence, you are your own employer, meaning you are responsible for the taxes. It is recommended that you estimate taxes and pay quarterly, because if you wait till the end of the year and then IRS sends you your forms and whatever, and it's determined that you have not paid enough, then there are penalties assigned. If you've overpaid, then it would be treated like any other refund. You'd get a refund. So just bear in mind, if you're 1099, you are your own employer. It gets wonky when you work for a consulting company, because they are consulting to a company, but you are consulting to the consulting company. But just think of a 1099 as you are your own employer. A W-2 is an employee. A 1099 is not an employee in any sense of the word with a company. Okay, now getting back to the most recent question, and Jeff, it just shot out of my brain. What were we talking about most recently? I wanna
Well,
make sure.
if I used to make X,
Oh,
what
yes, yes,
should
yes,
I
yes,
be
yes.
looking for?
I know it's a human nature, and we all want to look at like the bottom line as far as salary. But what you want to look at a position, especially if the starting pay is not what you'd like, is bear in mind that when you are hired at a company, they look at more than just the salary. Obviously, they're looking at the compensation package because that is a cost to them. So if you're going down on base salary, look at the benefit package, because that is what I often refer to as like hidden money, meaning that it's money that's not out of your pocket. So it actually results in more disposable income for you. So if the company you're going to has a more robust benefit program than the company you came from, you might actually break even, or you might even make a little bit on the deal, because if they have a more robust benefit plan. So look at the big picture. Also look at location, if it's right next door to your home, or other types of perks that may not have a direct dropping money in your pocket, but in the long run it will, because if you're closer to your home, you're saving on gas expense and wear and tear on your car, et cetera, et cetera. If it's a casual clothing environment as opposed to a traditional one, you're saving on your dry cleaning costs. So try and look outside of the box when you're looking at new opportunities. Yes, the optimum is always that you want to like stay at what you last made, or hopefully you can get more. But look at the big picture too. If you like the company, if you like your new boss, if you see it as a long-term thing, bear in mind that compensations are not static. So you may start in at one point, but you don't know what the percentage of increase might be for the next year. So just some food for thought to look at other things other than just the base pay when you're considering another opportunity. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Diane.
Can I chime in on this conversation?
Yes, please.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I've had about 3 interviews in the last couple of weeks. One of those was with my alma mater, and prior to talking to the actual operating officer who wants to build a team, I got asked by the HR person what kind of income I was looking at, and I was thinking about the situation and how things are happening, and I was willing to take a $10,000 cut in my pay to get on board with this, because my work ethic, I believe, would prove later that they would, raise that up. I'm still waiting for a response on that. But prior to that, another interview I had, they were offering me a rate of $17 an hour, which is well above minimum wage. But for the problem I had with that company and what they were offering was, first of all, they asked me what I wanted to make. I told them what I wanted. Then they went on ahead and scheduled me to talk with the hiring manager, who said, well, no, I couldn't do that, but we have bonuses. And what I ended up thinking about in the process of that was, I'm a 30-year veteran with a background and knowledge and experience. I have education, as I'm sure we all do. And what they were offering me, I'm just like, is there a fair balance here between what you're offering me versus what I'm telling you I want? And of course, I didn't make it known to them that what I was wanting was taking a cut in pay. And Diane, I can really appreciate where you're coming from, looking at other things that you don't see in terms of, benefits, vacation time, those kinds of things. But one thing I always tell myself, these people don't know what I'm capable of, that I want to come on board. And whatever I do, my personal work ethic, I'm going to bring to the table, because I always keep in mind, I want to make whoever I'm working for look their best. And then that helps me. Everybody wins. I'm a win-win type thinker. And so I feel like sometimes as a person seeking employment, companies, they want to save money. I understand that. But I feel sometimes they lowball people or act like maybe we're in a mindset of desperation, which is why I turned that job down, because I don't want the job, but I don't want you to discount or minimize my knowledge, my experience, my background. And I'm sure you're not purposely trying to insult me, but all I see I would be doing is making money to pay for gas to drive to work. And there's nothing that really helps sustain me or it may, you're treating me more like I'm an entry level person and I'm not. Looking at me, I've got gray hair. So I got something going on here that I'm gonna bring to the table, and money is very important. You got to have it to pay your bills, but it's not fair lowballing people. And that's something I really don't appreciate.
I like the term when people ask, if HR asks or, whatever. Number one, most companies already have a pay range in mind. They've already set those things. And so you can always ask what it is. But I think you've got to be prepared to sort of know what your low number is going to be, that I will not work for less than $65,000 a year because that's what I need to pay the mortgage, to pay the car bills, to pay the food, electricity, gas, everything else. So you've got to have that minimum number. But then, when you're applying for jobs, I mean, I've never applied for a job going, well, this company doesn't pays too little. Because most of the time when you're applying for a job, you don't know what the company's paying. So, you apply for, this job sounds like me. Oh, I can do this job. You apply for them. You don't have to take them, if they like you. And there has been people in this Friday group I know who have gone in for an interview and they go, well, you really have more talent. We've got this other job. We haven't even posted this yet. And the person gets hired into the company at a higher rate, at a different job title, a higher pay. So, I think you just need to apply for it and go. Now, when you do go, when you've applied for a job and if you have an interview coming up or, they want to talk with you, you need to do some research. You need to have an idea what's the fair market value for that job title in this community. You can go to bls.gov, which is the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. You can plug in information and come up with that number. Salary.com does the same thing. The salary.com isn't quite as good as BLS because BLS actually gets government information, but it gets company information. So, and Mark, we talk about this fair and equitable, Mark and Walt talk about this in the interview success workshop, or in the workshop we're doing on Wednesdays, about what is a fair wage and how you should average the averages. I don't know if Mark, you want to talk about that.
Well, before you do that, can I ask you, sometimes I look at the reviews of employees and customers to see what they say about a company. And I have found that to be very interesting in terms of doing some research on a company. And I like to think that just because maybe there is an offer, I tend, again, being optimistic in my thinking, they're saying one thing, but we may end up in the interview finding something else. And I have had situations where we're looking for you for this, but we find maybe that's better. And that has worked for me in the past.
Yeah, there you go. Well, first of all, it's nothing personal. They need a certain job done. And if it's a large corporation, they've spent a lot of time figuring out how much they should pay for that particular job based on the skills required and what the market will bear. So now it's kind of up to you to, as Jeff said, to figure out what you're willing to work for. They will try to find someone who has everything they need and maybe extra. But because you have extra does not mean the job requires it. It may be a bonus for them, but they can only offer as much as they can offer. And so the question up front, early in the process, what are your salary requirements, is to try to figure out if you're even in the range that they could pay. Okay. And you do your research. So the way to answer that question is to, first of all, try to defer it until maybe you've heard a little bit more about what the opportunity is and what the situation is. But if you're deeper into the process and you know a little bit about exactly what they want and what's required, then you want to offer a range of salaries, and you get that range by going to one of these websites. And I like bls.gov as well. That's just the 3 letters. I'll put it in the chat, bls.gov, because they give you information about economic areas. So Dallas-Fort Worth is an economic area. They have a whole bunch of different industries that you can look at. And when you hit on a job, it'll tell you how many people are actually employed in that region. What job, people have project manager, 1 or project manager senior title in an economic area. And it'll also give you like a 10%, 10 percentile. I think it's 10%, 25%, 50, and 90%. So that kind of covers your years of experience. So if you're highly experienced as a project manager, your salary might be more towards the 90%. If you're just out of college, it'd be more closer to the 20%, but it gives you that distribution, which is very effective. Now, so you look up project manager and you find out in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, working in, let's say, the defense industry, that a project manager gets, 80,000 to 100,000. That's the range. So that's what the data says. Okay, now when you go to negotiate, you want to put a range on a range. This is what Jeff was talking about. So you might say, instead of saying 80 to 100, you might say mid 70s to low 100s. Okay, so you've even broadened it even further. And you do that because early in the process, this is a kick out question, right? They're gonna, if you don't hit their range, then they're gonna eliminate you. Later in the process, you're starting to negotiate. Okay, and so you just want to start with a broad range to give yourself some flexibility, and then move towards the number that you would take as things go on. I like this phrase to answer this question because it's very straightforward. For the responsibilities of this position, I would expect, and then you can give the range. Okay. Because this is what it's all about. It's the responsibilities of that position. It's, although that's an indication that you could do the job if you've had more responsibility or made more money in the past. But it's a responsibility of that position. And if you find out through the interview process that they're in dire straits, that you have something that's unique and they can't get anywhere else, they're going to bring you in and you're going to have to work 75 hours a week to dig them out of a hole, then, for the responsibilities of this position, you would expect a lot more and you're going to be up at the top end of that range. As Diane said, you may find out that, hey, you get to work 4 days a week, 4 10-hour days. And so every weekend is a 3-day weekend. And as a matter of fact, you can do that from home. And even when you have to come in the office, it's only 5 minutes away. You might, and they have great benefits with, $5 copay at the doctor's office. You might say, well, I'll take a little lower. I'll take a little lower range because that's, a really sweet deal. So for the responsibilities of this position, I would expect.
All right.
Not trying to beat a dead horse, but a couple other thoughts. One is resist the temptation to undervalue yourself. Okay. If you get hard up for a job and I really need a job and I'm willing to take a cut for that. All right. That's not what I would use as, certainly never say that, but I would suggest that we kind of look at things. So here's the 3 factors. And Mark mentioned one of them was the level of responsibility, but the scope of work, the level of responsibility, and the value you bring to a company are the 3 factors that can help you decide what that range is. And so since you don't know when that question is coming, it can come throughout the whole process. I like the phrase, and I like Mark's phrase about, from what I know about the level of responsibilities. But here's this little phrase that says, based upon what I know now, okay, because I don't know how much you know about the value you bring and what level of responsibility you have. You don't have those factors yet. You're still trying to dig those up. And so based on what I know now, I would say the range would look like this. And then I turn right around and say, and what is your range? And so if you give your numbers, ask them to give their numbers. Give a range, don't give a specific number. So don't undervalue yourself. Some people will not hire you because you cut yourself too low. And then when you get to the negotiation part. So another thing you can say is I look at the total package. I like to stay away from the word benefits because it can throw up a red flag. Many of us are saying, I need a job because of benefits. Well, I don't want to tell that to the employee, that other employer, that's not the reason why they're going to hire you. But I said, I look at the total package and making a decision. And that gives you the chance so that when they're making an offer and you get the benefits package, you can then evaluate that.
So, Jeff?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Hi. Good morning, everybody. So I ask another question because I'm, of course, fairly early in my job search process. However, I do remember last year I did a couple of, I say, test interviews. I was not actively applying, but I wanted to discuss with some recruiters about jobs I was interested in. And this conversation about the base pay came extremely early in the process with the recruiting. I think sometimes even like on the first 2 or 3 questions, they wanted to know if we are on the same page regarding expectations, what the job or the role or the company is willing to pay, and what are my expectations. And my approach always has been along the lines, based on my research in the Metroplex job market for somebody with my years of experience in this field, I believe the rate of pay should be X, let's say 80K or whatever it was. And then the recruiter will say, well, we are on the same page, or yes, no, maybe. And then the conversation would stop or continue after that. So I'm not sure if the approach is correct. I always do my research, of course, before I go to any interview, research about the job market, about the company, about the specific field. Your job maybe in healthcare pays different than a job in IT, than a job in maybe transportation, so on and so forth. So now I have to focus, because I'm an active job seeker. I want to focus on the right approach to try to land a job as soon as possible. At the same time, I don't want to shortcut myself, if anything, because I do have 17 years of experience. So I want to make sure that I'm not really going to go backwards as much, that I will not be comfortable to do the job.
Well, I think, Mark will talk about this, but I think it's really important to know that there are different kinds of recruiters out there, and there's some recruiters will go and ask that right up front, and that's probably, it could be a recruiter who works for the company that's a direct hire, because they don't want to waste your time or their time. I think that if you're dealing with a outside recruiter, somebody who's trying to place you, they want to get as much money as they can, because the more money they get for you, the more money, bigger percentage of check they get for themselves. So, it depends, I think, on what kind of recruiter. But quite frankly, I like it when the money question comes up front, because why waste hours of research and getting ready for an interview? And as long as you have a little bit of information, understand what it should be. And like I said, I always throw back the term to them. I'm sure you pay a fair and equitable wage, for the responsibilities of the job. Mark?
Yeah, my opinion on this is, if you're unemployed, you should know what the salary is, for the job that you're applying for. And so what you've done is very good. I would just add to that, you don't need to give them an exact number early in the process, just give them a range. And so based on your research, the range was this. And as I mentioned, I would soften it up on the edges, just expand it a little wider. And then you want to find out, as Walt said, what their budget is as well. But early in the process, it's an elimination question. If we don't see eye to eye, if you need more than I have available, then I'll call you back when I have another position that pays more. So that ends the process right there. So you want to give a range, and you want to communicate that you have insight and what the value of this job is. You've done some research. A lot of people, when the economy, when a regular normal recession comes along, a lot of people get laid off, and those jobs are never coming back at what they got paid. Okay, that the value of that job has been permanently reduced. And so recruiters, frankly, don't want to spend time with people who haven't figured that out, that they're never going to get 120K again in the hospitality industry, because, half the restaurants in the world are gone now. So I think it's important to provide a number. There's other perspectives on that, but I think it's important to let them know that what their range is, and if there's a match, there's a good match. Okay, give yourself the best chance you can, though, by giving a pretty wide range early in the process, and as it goes along, you'll be able to tighten that up.
Okay, thank you.
It's done early on in the process. you can try delaying. Says, I'd love to answer that question. Can you give me any information about the job? I mean, but you might not even have a job description. You might have zero information whatsoever. Say, can I get the job description? Can I get some information? Can you tell me more about the responsibilities and the authority I would have and the expectation? You know, trying to get some information from them. And if they just come back and say, no, I just need to get a number, it's just what I want to go on, then you would say, okay, my expectation based on what I know now, which is very little, X to Y, and then what is their range, and move on from there. You want a win-win situation in your salary.
Yes. Okay.
I would say I got into doing pharmaceuticals because a local guy contacted me, lowballed me, but I got the training I needed in GMP. And so my experience has been the recruiter is offering something appropriate for market rate. I just have to decide if I'm way too overqualified. You're lowballed when it's somebody if they're really going to lowball you, they're going to contact you directly and not bother hiring a firm.
Remember that some companies can't pay you what you're worth. They can only pay what they can afford. And there's other parameters in making those decisions to join the company like
right. And so they don't even use a recruiting firm if they can't afford it.
Right. Okay, what else can we talk about? What other topics would you like to talk about in your job search? I know we had a LinkedIn question, and I, advise the person, join us Tuesday at 1 o'clock for our LinkedIn session, because we'll be able to answer that much better there.
All right, I have a question.
Okay.
Because Eldon mentioned a couple of virtual career fairs coming up, and I'm retired now. I lead the PIC crew. That's my job. But what the heck happens in a virtual career fair? How does that actually work?
Who's been to one?
I have. I think I've been to 3 or 4 of them. And even though they've all been on different platforms, at least for me, the model has been fairly similar. So there are, just as in Zoom, you can set up rooms. They all have virtual rooms. All of the ones I've been to had a virtual lobby. And so you checked yourself in, you could see the agenda and the schedule. There's usually a tab. There's usually workshops that run through the time. And then the companies all have virtual booths that you can either click on or select the company. And then when you go into their booth, it then depends on what the company puts in their booth. It can be anything from, they might have job titles they're recruiting for, job descriptions. They usually have a link to their website so that you can check out information about the company. And then again, for all the ones I've been in, the companies have had, usually it's an HR recruiter, and there might be a hiring manager who is actually there in the virtual room, and they're running a chat. And a lot of times you can schedule one-on-one time to speak with either one of them, sometimes during the fair, so you can get offline and have those conversations, or you can just do that through the chat or set up meetings later on. So again, I've been on, I think 3 now, all different platforms. To me, they've all been really easy to engage in, nothing technically difficult in any way. It's funny that I actually found a job for a family member, not myself, during a job fair, and he's now been at that job since I think October and loving it. So, it's a good way to network as well too. That's it.
Anybody else done virtual?
So it sounds like it's reasonably effective. Do you usually get an opportunity to have some one-on-one time in that room, or how long, or is there a time limit you can stay? Or
usually the job fairs are open for a good part of the day. It might be from like 10 to 2 or from 8 until 2 or something, and then that allows you to pop in and out of the virtual booths when you want to. And then, for instance, if I'm in one and I send a message to a recruiter, I don't necessarily have to sit in that virtual booth to wait for a response. I can then hop into another company's virtual booth And then when there is a message or a response, it dings you. So you know that you can go back to that other employer and respond so that you can actually have multiple chats going on. And there's usually an overall organizer or facilitator kind of in the background. So if you do have any technical difficulties or questions, you can talk to that person as well. I haven't been in any that has had an actual time limit, like you can only stay in a booth for 10 minutes or a recruiter will only talk to you for X amount of time. Some of them, though, depending on the company, are really busy. And if they only have 1 or 2 people, you may wait a little while for a response. I think overall, what I've seen for the ones that I've been there is that the positions for which they are recruiting, for the ones I've been in, they've all been fairly low level. There's no like director, VP, really senior manager roles. They're all not necessarily entry level, but probably I would say within the first 10 years for the most part of careers.
But I think that's true.
So as a follow-up, I would say I have not then applied for any job that I have seen in a job fair. I personally have not done that.
But I think when you go to an in-person job fair, when they were in person, it was the same level of jobs. Yes. You never had, manager, senior manager,
right.
C-suite people. It always was 1 to 10 years experience, probably, even for the in-person ones.
Right. I agree.
And my experience with some job fairs was that they had basic HR people and not necessarily the hiring manager there. They would answer questions, but they were pretty basic answers that honestly I could have gotten online. And also my experience was that the most popular companies, ones that I wanted to work for, had long lines of people waiting for the questions. But like you said, or just you enter your question, you go about looking at other information, and then the program will give you a ding when it's your turn. So don't be discouraged if you have some questions and the people that are supposed to answer that, there's a long queue in front of you.
Yeah, if I could jump in as well, I went to one for virtual job fair for veterans. I thought they were very well organized. And the one advantage of them is that you're sure that your resume is going to get to someone in HR. They're going to look at it. They get to know your name. So that's one advantage of them.
Anybody else?
This is Brenda. I have attended a couple of them, and I thought they were very well organized. And every one of them that I had asked questions, I did get a response back from. And they do set up, some of them will set up one-on-one interviews with you that same day. And then some of, like I was looking for a project manager job, and some of them said, well, we don't have that listed, but go out to our website and apply. So some of them will give you different websites to go on, but all of them have responded back to me. I've even had some after the job fair was over, like a week or two later, to follow up with me. And one of them even asked me if I wanted a job, which I was just trying to find out information about the company itself. And they said, oh, did you apply for the job? I didn't even know they had a job opening. So I think that they're very good, even just to get networking information, because all of them will give their email address or give some websites that you can follow up with them.
I think one tip you have to go ahead, Walt.
So do you feel like most of the jobs they're talking about are posted jobs?
They have most of them had posted jobs, and I've even, because you can read what other people are saying in the chat as well. And other people are looking for different jobs, and so they do have other jobs. And if you ask them, they will tell you if they have jobs for what you're actually looking for in a different location on their website.
I mean, I would, once again, when you go to these virtual job fairs, it should be any different than when you're going to an interview. You need to do a little bit of research. Why do you go to a job fair? You go to a job fair because there's a company there that you're interested in. So if you know there's a company there that you're interested in, you should really check out the website before you get there. Know what's there, apply for a job. I remember once I was at a job fair out in Irving, and somebody came to me and was saying, they were standing in front of this long line to get up front to talk to this one company. And one person said, oh, it was a biggest waste of time because I got to the front of the line and they said, check online, apply for our jobs online. It was just like, it was a total waste. Where somebody else came back and said, oh, it was great. I got to the front of the line. The lady said, apply online, look for our jobs online. And I told the lady, I said, I did apply for a job. I've applied for the XYZ job. Do you know who the hiring manager is? She thought for a second and said, yeah, his name is so-and-so. And so now he had a name. So when you go to these job fairs, virtual or in real, prepare, see what's there. I mean, be always willing to, zig and zag at the last minute, but, look ahead and go, yeah, I've already applied for this job. Do you know who I should be talking to?
Yeah, actually, I've seen people respond and say, I've applied online and never heard a response. And they will say, well, send it to me directly.
Yeah. I think the virtual part, because I bet most of the time the chat's recorded or the room is being recorded, that, their boss could go back and watch this and they want to make sure that people are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing when they go to these job fairs.
Being responsive. Yeah. And so you can also ask who the recruiter is for the position, right? So in your case, that recruiter volunteered his or her email address for you to send the information. But in larger companies, there'll be a recruiter assigned to each position and they may share that information with you. They may be less likely to share the hiring managers, but go ahead and ask. And if that doesn't work, then ask for the recruiter responsible for that position.
Right. All right, Dino asked, once you get a job offer, what's the process? I know things have changed in the last 12 years since the last time I was in job search. Who'd like to take that? Once you get a job offer, well, nobody here has gotten a job offer in the last month because you're here, but anybody in the last year or two, what's the process?
I would imagine you'd go and get your drug test.
Drug test, background check, paperwork. I'm sure they'll send you a lot of paperwork to fill out.
Yeah.
A lot of it now can be done online using virtual sign or whatever they use.
And now there's a lot of conversation around technology. Even if you're going to be remote, do you need to go pick up technology, or are they going to mail you technology? If, a lot of places want you to use their equipment for cybersecurity purposes, which of course makes sense. And there's usually HR and onboarding as well once you get through that whole background check process.
This is Tom. I will add something to that. Not every company, of course, drug tests, but I will tell you, the ones that do, when they call you, you've got to go within 24 hours they'll give you a location near to where you live. So you don't get much warning there. So you'll have to, get there promptly, because that's just the way they do it. I've had that done to me a couple of times. And, I like working in places where I know they do that, but you need to be ready to cut and run when they tell you to go. They're pretty rigid about that.
Any other questions? I mean, don't forget next week.
They want to make sure you don't have enough time to get out of your system anything you may have in your system.
Right.
That's very deliberate.
Right. And don't forget, our speaker next week is going to be talking about background checks. And I'm sure background checks is one of the, when you're a new employee, it's one of the things that happens. It was something interesting that happened to my daughter. My daughter just started a new job in December. And she, they asked for references. And they said, well, no, don't send them to us. We'll send you a link to our website or to a website. And they sent a link to the website. And she had to enter in one supervisor and 2 coworkers, and she thought it was more important to have supervisors listed. So it was very interesting. And then everything was totally done online. There was no phone calls, because I guess nowadays, I know since this has started, I've gotten 3 phone calls on my phone, which I've answered none of them just because I'm with you, but I don't know who these people are. One person left a message, the other 2 didn't. I don't answer a phone call if I don't know who it is. So this was interesting that the whole reference system has sort of gone online now. So, just be prepared with that. You don't need to send them 6 or 8 references unless that's, they'll tell you what they want. But I found it very interesting that it was totally online, and and the thing is, my daughter had to fill out a questionnaire about how she worked and how she worked with others, and then the other people had to do the exact same thing. Well, how did you work and how did you mingle with Alex? Just so they would have an idea to see, did things actually match up. So that was an interesting nuance that I've never seen before.
Depending on your role, I mean, you may want to have customer references, you may want to have vendor references, not only but peers, but subordinate references. I mean, I would prepare all of those in advance so that you got those prepared, and do your due diligence. You call that person who's your reference and say, what would you tell them about me? So that you'll know, maybe you don't want to choose them as a reference.
Right. All right, here's another question.
That's just before you move on, what the two of you said dovetails with what I'm going through right now. I received an email a couple of days ago about being moved to reference check section. And the references I had put in on my application were mainly people I had worked with and not necessarily for. And so the email said, it is a requirement of this agency that we also speak with at least one previous supervisor. So you need to give me a supervisor reference. And so it wasn't a big deal. I mean, I reached out to the supervisor and said, hey, I'm about to submit your name as a reference, and et cetera. But yes, that is very much the case, is that they want a variety.
Okay. Another question here is, I'm currently receiving unemployment. If I accept a temporary contract role, can I return to collecting unemployment once the role ends?
I believe the answer is yes, but it's not based, but your new temporary employment doesn't get included in calculation. So if you had 16 weeks, you take a temporary job at 4 weeks, you would still have the other 12 weeks available. But, you work 3 months, that 3 months, if it's a contract job, does not add to qualification for unemployment.
Yeah, and let me add to that, since I've been through that cycle a couple times. You're right, you can get back on unemployment. However, be careful. I found my experience with the TWC is they are very particular. They want to track every hour you and every dollar you earned, and sometimes it's a little bureaucratic and messy. So just be careful about that in terms of you're going to have to do appeals and that type of thing. But yeah, you can get back on your original claim.
However, you typically lose a week because it's like you started a new role.
Also be careful. State of Wisconsin 20 years ago dunged me because I started a job on Saturday night working third shift at a nursing home. And so they said, no, you started this week, not that week. So you have to be cautious about that, even though I finished the shift on Sunday of the next week.
Yeah, I had Texas once tried to deny a claim because I had put down the day I was off by 1 day. I thought this was the last day, but I guess the company must have submitted something else or whatever, off by 1 day, and I had the file going, well, that was 7 years ago. That's just what I think is correct. And, so you got to keep if you're going to take a part-time job, keep real exact, detailed notes with what you're doing, and always appeal.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to add too, and of course this is a by state basis, so depending on where you're getting paid from, but there is a possibility to get the part-time job and still receive your unemployment. What they'll do though, and you must be absolutely honest and tell them what you're making, because let's say, for example, I'm just going to use round numbers. Let's say you get $100 a week on unemployment, and let's say your part-time job is going to give you 50 of that. Okay, then your unemployment would make up the other 50. So there are situations I would check with your respective, like here in Texas, the Texas Workforce Commission, things like that. So there are occasions where you can still collect unemployment, but just at a reduced amount. And then that kind of pushes it forward as far as what you can then get once you get off of the part-time job if you have to go back on unemployment again. So it kind of keeps your record active, but you're still getting money too. So you're kind of made whole, at least in my hypothetical example, for the $100 a week. You're getting 50 from your part-time job and then 50 from the unemployment. Thanks.
Right. This week I called them and they said the same thing. They asked me, am I working? It's like, well, why would I be asking you for unemployment if I'm working? But yes, they did offer that. And yes, I'm on the PIOU, whatever thing is. And they have sent those out, but they have not started it yet. They got delayed. So the pandemic relief is coming out, not been approved as soon as it gets mailed out.
And I'm working a part-time job, and that's spreading out my unemployment. I'm getting unemployment plus my part-time work, it's much less than my regular job was. So I'm still getting unemployment. It's stretching it out, so it's making it last longer that way.
Right.
My question on that, go ahead.
Yeah, normally you only have 20, when you get unemployment, you have it for 26 weeks. You have 26 weeks of earnings that you can accumulate. And if you have a part-time job, that can then stretch that 26 weeks out so that it lasts longer, as Todd's saying.
So how long would you have to work until if you lose that job, you apply for a new set of unemployment? Is that a year that you would have to work? Does anybody know how that works?
It's a mystery. TWC is a mystery.
Okay. All right.
I will say, here's a hint that I've heard, that if you have issues with TWC and you're not getting any answers, you're not getting phone calls, you can't get somebody to give you an answer, contact your local state or your representative or senator from your local person and tell them what the issue is and say, I can't get TWC to answer, or whatever your local workforce office is. I can't get them to help me out. Can you do something? I found that it's a very effective way, because for some reason, government agencies tend to respond to state and local representatives a lot quicker than they'll answer to you and me.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Jeff. That's worked like 2 times for me. So if you just contact them, you do get a call back, and it's usually a higher up person that can actually fix whatever the problem is.
Right.
I think what they do is they go, if you think about it, when you first apply, they go back 16 months and figure out what you paid into the system and how much you're qualified for. So if you're on unemployment for 4 weeks and you get a job and then that ends after 6 months or something, the same rules would apply. They'll add the additional 6 months on top of and repeat the calculation. So there's no limit per se. You can have it more than once in a year. It's just, do you have enough credit in the account, if you will?
But what I think is unfair is I just finished a 7-year job not too long ago, and I can't go back and pull out money I paid in on that one. So.
All right, well, I don't want to go much longer because we've already gone 1 hour and 45 minutes. And so I want to wrap up here with a few things. Let me share my screen. Thank you, everybody, for what you've submitted, your questions and your answers. I think it was really, really great. Next week, Mike Coffey will be with us. We'll be talking about background checks. It's always a very interesting presentation. He speaks all around the state about backgrounds. He's built a very big, legitimate background check company. It's very interesting to hear what he'll have to say. All right, once again, for anybody who has not put in their 30-second introductions into the chat box, this is how I'm going to be able to get you added on to the roster. Please, in the chat box, please put your name, phone number, email address, position you're looking for, a couple target companies, and then I will be I'll publish all that information this afternoon when I put out my email with the roster. For those people who are watching on Facebook, please, I will go and delete your personal information off of Facebook right after this meeting. I'll copy the information over and delete it. Today at 1 o'clock, I'd like to announce the Woman Out of Work group will be meeting. Today's topic is mindset at 1 o'clock. Today at 1 o'clock, if you're interested in joining the group, There's an email address. You've got to go to the Career DFW calendar to get the email address for Dr. Susan Carlson, who runs this group, because she's got it there. It's sort of by invitation only. So if you're interested, they meet the first and the third Friday at 1 o'clock. So if you're interested, you can send her a note and she'll get you in. You've got plenty of time to get signed up with that. If you have any questions, you can always email me. Just as a reminder, Career DFW and Career USA, we put up topics every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 1 o'clock. Tuesdays is LinkedIn, Wednesday is interviewing, Thursday is effective resumes, and then you're right here every Friday morning for the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. This next Tuesday, our speaker is going to be Locke Alderson, how to use LinkedIn for job hunting, strategies that get results. This will be a great way to, any questions you've got about how to use LinkedIn to help you, find a contact or whatever for your job search. Really a good presentation. Join Locke this next Tuesday at 1. Next Wednesday, as we've said before, interviewing Wednesdays, interview openings, closings, and follow-up will be on session number 6. If you want to see sessions 1 through 5, I'll show you in just a second where to find those at. And then next Thursday, our effective resume class. This past week, we had Tony Bashira from Babbage & Associates. He did an excellent presentation yesterday. It is also available to go back and watch if you'd like. Also, every Thursday, we're giving away 2 licenses to jobscan.co for 1 month of use, unlimited use of using jobscan.co. This session has been recorded. All of our sessions are recorded as long as the speakers allow it. It'll be on the Career DFW Facebook page and on the Career USA YouTube channel. Please follow us on Facebook. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you'll find out about whenever we go live or whenever we've posted a new video up on the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel looks like this. Make sure you click on playlist because you want to see the playlist that I've put together. It makes it easy for you to find everything. And then whatever subject you want, effective resumes, interviewing, LinkedIn, North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. Don't click on the video, but click underneath where you see that red area where it says view full playlist, and up will come a list with all the different topics, and then you can pick the one that you're interested in. Thank you very much for joining us today. Have a great weekend, everybody. As long as you've got your information in the chat box, you'll get invited to our groups.io group, and you'll get a copy of the roster, everybody who showed up today. So have a great weekend. Go whoever you want to vote for in the Super Bowl, or whoever you're rooting for.